Okay, let's take that deep dive into the source material we've got here. It details a really, really heartbreaking event. The Air India plane crash happened just after takeoff from Ahmedabad, India, this past Thursday.
Just devastating, wasn't it? I mean, the sources point to a massive loss of life, nearly everyone on board, tragically.
Yeah, and it didn't stop there. It impacted people on the ground, too.
Lives lost there as well, sadly.
So our goal here with this deep dive is really to unpack what the news sources you provided are telling us. We want to look at, the immediate aftermath.
Right.
Share some of the human stories that are coming out, which are just incredibly tough.
They really are.
And explore what the sources say about the efforts, the ongoing efforts to figure out what exactly happened.
It's a difficult subject, definitely. We need to approach it with respect.
Absolutely. Focus on the facts, the human impact, just as it's been reported.
Okay. So maybe start with the scene. The sources say Ahmedabad, and specifically, it came down in a residential area.
Right into a residential area. And the immediate result, well, horrific. The plane hit a building.
Just catastrophic destruction, you'd imagine.
And the numbers.
Yeah.
The scale of the loss is just immense. The sources mentioned 242 people on the plane.
And only one survivor.
One single survivor. And then, tragically, on the ground, at least 8 people reported killed there.
Yeah, that includes 4 medical students living in the building that was hit. And 4 of their relatives who are apparently visiting.
So a family's just wiped out.
And the passenger list itself, it shows how global this tragedy is. Sources are reporting 169 Indian nationals, 0.53 British, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian on board.
Wow. Quite a mix. And by Friday morning, what did the scene look like?
Well, security was tight, investigators arriving, the descriptions, pretty grim. The smell of smoke, burnt metal still hanging in the air.
And lots of debris still there, I gather.
Yeah, significant debris. Sources mentioned seeing like a wing section and even the tail actually lodged in the damaged building.
Just lodged in the building. Unbelievable.
And amidst all that, this story of the sole survivor, it's astonishing, frankly.
Who is it? What do we know?
British national Vishwash Kumaramesh. He was in seat 11A.
11A, okay.
He's recovering in hospital. His brother is quoted saying he has no idea how he survived.
I can't even imagine. What do the aviation experts say about that? Just one survivor.
Yeah, that's a point the sources pick up on. The experts find it almost inexplicable.
Really? Why?
Well, their experience suggests that usually in crashes this severe, you either get, quite a few survivors if the impact allowed for it somehow.
Right.
Or almost none at all because the destruction is just total. So one single person surviving. It's statistically very unusual.
That really stands out. Something for the investigation, for sure.
Absolutely. And speaking of the investigation, the next critical step, according to the sources, is finding those black boxes.
Right. The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder.
Exactly. The FDR logs all the technical data speed, altitude, engine stats,
All the technical stuff.
And the CVR that captures the pilot's conversations, any sounds in the cockpit. They're hoping those will provide, vital clues about those last moments.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. But beyond the technical side, the material you shared, it really brings the human cost into such sharp focus. The agony families are going through right now.
It's incredibly difficult to read some of these accounts.
Well, like Prahlad Thakur, a cafeteria worker?
Yes, his story. He was out delivering lunchboxes, apparently, when the plane hit the building.
The building where his wife, Sarla, and his little granddaughter, Adya, just 2 years old, were inside.
Oh, no.
And now he's just waiting for DNA results to confirm. He gave samples. They told him it could take 72 hours.
Just unimaginable, that wait.
And then there's the family from Gloucestershire in the UK.
Yes, Akil Nanabawa, Hanavorji, and their 4-year-old daughter, Sarah, all on the flight.
Lost together. What did the imam say about them?
He described them as just incredibly close-knit, devoted parents. Sarah, a beautiful little girl. He talked about their compassion, how active they were in the community.
Sounds like lovely people.
Widely loved, he said. And he called Sarah a ray of sunshine. It's just, heartbreak.
Absolute gut-wrenching. And another story from the ground. A 15-year-old boy, Akash.
He lived and worked part-time in that same cafeteria in the building that was hit.
And he died in the collapse. His mother, Sita Ben. She also worked there.
Yes, and she was severely burned trying to rescue him. She's in the hospital now.
Oh, my goodness.
His father apparently heard the explosion, rushed over, smoke, fumes everywhere, only to find out his son hadn't made it. His older brother, Kelpesh.
Yep.
Just inconsolable, the sources say.
How could you be anything else? It's just devastating.
And the grief, it stretches across continents, too. There's a story about an aunt.
Yes.
Her nephew, 25, from the UK, was on that flight. He'd flown to India for a really solemn reason.
Hey, what was that?
To perform his father's last rites. His dad had passed away just back on May 29th.
Oh, terrible timing. So he was flying home after doing that.
Exactly, flying home after performing the rites for his father, and now he's lost too. His aunt was met at the hospital, and apparently her cries were just echoing.
You could just picture the scene. Awful. What about the crew? Do the sources tell us anything about them?
They do. The captain, Sumit Sabarwal, 60 years old, a real veteran, nearly 30 years flying, over 8,200 hours.
Experienced pilot.
Very.
Yeah.
He was an LTC, a line training captain, so he was training other pilots. Apparently, he was just months away from retiring.
Oh, wow. So close.
Yeah, planning to spend time with his 82-year-old father. A neighbor described him as reserved, disciplined.
And the co-pilot.
First Officer Clive Kundar, about 1,100 hours flying time. He was certified for the Dreamliner, the 787, which was the aircraft involved.
Right. And the scene at the hospital now, you mentioned the waiting.
Yeah, the civil hospital in Ahmedabad. Sources paint a picture of families just camping out during this long, painful night.
Waiting for what exactly? DNA samples?
Either waiting to give DNA samples or waiting desperately for the results, trying to identify their loved ones. It's described as an agonizing task.
I can only imagine.
Bodies are coming out from the post-mortem room in coffins, but the police, quite rightly, aren't releasing them until identification is absolutely confirmed.
And with an impact like this, DNA might be the only way for some.
That's what the sources suggest. It's often the only way in these situations, which just adds to that painful, prolonged wait for families.
Okay, let's shift slightly to the official response. What did the sources say about, say, Prime Minister Modi?
He visited the crash site, spent about 20 minutes there, apparently. His office released video of him inspecting the debris.
Did he speak to the press?
No, didn't speak to reporters there. He also visited a hospital with some of the wounded. The aviation minister and other officials were with him.
And the airline? Air India CEO.
Campbell Wilson. He also went to the crash site on Friday morning. He was surrounded by reporters but didn't make comments there.
But he made a statement earlier.
Yes. On Thursday, he'd expressed his deep sorrow, said the airline's focus was completely on supporting the passengers, the crew, their families, their needs.
Understandable. And any international reaction mentioned.
Yes, the material notes condolences coming in. China's President Xi Jinping, for example, reportedly sent messages to both PM Modi and the UK's King Charles.
Right, acknowledging the significant number of British victims.
Exactly.
Now, the big question, the cause. What do the sources say? Do we know anything yet?
No, not yet. The sources are very clear on that. The cause of the crash is still unknown.
But are there theories or areas they're looking into?
They do mention that experts believe there are sort of they actually detail what those three reasons are.
Okay, so still very early days on that front.
Very early. It's interesting, though, maybe just coincidental, but the reports covering the crash also mention some other Air India news happening around the same time.
Oh, like what?
Well, on Friday, a different Air India flight, Phuket to Delhi, had to divert because of a bomb threat message found on board.
Seriously? Was everyone okay?
Yes, thankfully. It landed safely, 156 passengers. And separately, they mentioned at least 16 Air India flights had recently been diverted or turned back because of the tensions in the Middle East.
The airspace closures over Iran, that kind of thing.
Precisely.
Okay. And what about Air India's safety record overall? What context do the sources give?
They describe it as sort of mixed historically, but improving, especially since it was privatized back in 2021.
Okay. Any past incidents mentioned?
Yeah, they list several major fatal ones involving Air India or its subsidiaries over the years. Kozhikode in August 2020.
I remember that one.
Mangaluru in 2010. Alliance Air in Patna in 2000. Aurangabad 93. Imphal 91. So there's a history there.
But this is the first for this aircraft type for them.
Yes, that's noted. The first fatal crash involving a 787 Dreamliner for Air India, and obviously the most serious incident they've had since that Kozhikode crash in 2020.
All right. And one last detail, something about market impact.
Yeah, interesting side note. Singapore Airlines shares apparently tumbled nearly 2% on Friday.
And the connection is?
Singapore Airlines holds a significant stake in Air India, about 25.1%, following that merger with Vistara that went through late last year, November 2024.
Ah, okay. So a direct financial link there.
Seems so. So yeah, this deep dive into the sources really paints a picture, doesn't it? The immediate, horrific aftermath, the start of a long investigation.
And these incredibly painful individual stories, people on the plane, people on the ground.
Human cost is just profound. And it's clearly ongoing for so many families right now.
Absolutely. Those multiple stories you shared, they just hammer home how one single sudden event like this doesn't stay contained. It ripples out,
Yeah.
affects whole communities, families on the ground in such wide and varied ways.
It really does. And when you think about that expert comment about the sole survivor.
Vishwash Kumaramesh in 11A.
Yeah. Given how violent the impact must have been, it really makes you grapple with the almost random nature of survival in something this catastrophic.
It absolutely does. Or, thinking about Prahlad Thakur, waiting for those DNA results for his wife and granddaughter or Akash's family dealing with that loss on the ground. It just highlights how the human cost is so deeply shared, isn't it?
Yeah.
Affecting lives on the ground just as fundamentally as those who were actually on the aircraft. A lot to think about as this investigation unfolds.